Hello, YouTube. Welcome to my stream. How was your day today? Today I did personal training. We went and did a couple of errands and then just sat outside in our backyard because it's very nice out and we have a cute backyard. Today I'm really excited to be doing a video that I've been wanting to do for a while about hockey because if you've been around our channel, my channel for a while, you'll know that I'm a big hockey person. We are a huge hockey household, and if you've been around for over a year, around this last April, I went to the IIHF World Women's Hockey Championship, and it was the coolest thing ever. So we are a big hockey family, specifically women's hockey family. So I'm really excited to be talking about hockey. Hi, Tori. How's it going? I have some friends. Hey, Neil, you're eating pizza. Yummy. Love that. Yeah, hockey. I'm excited. This will be good. I thought with the wrap up of the Professional Women's Hockey League season, we could do a video on it, and I'm really excited. So we're going to get started. I'm happy to see some friends here for my hockey stream. Hey, Gary. Lovely to see you. So knowing that not everyone knows what the PWHL is, I want to talk about what the league is first, and we're going to talk a bit about the Walter Cup Championship, which is why I did not stream on Wednesday, because I wanted to watch the final game, and then what they're going to do next season. So we're going to learn about a professional women's hockey league. So this is captain of Toronto, captain of New York, and Billie Jean King is there, and Jana Hefford is on the right, the blonde lady. You were the first one to post. Awesome. Okay. The Professional Women's Hockey League aims to give the world's best women's players the opportunity to pursue the game full time. There are 6 founding teams based in New York, Toronto, Boston, Montreal, Ottawa, and St. Paul, Minnesota. In the past, professional women's players have generally had to hold down outside jobs to make ends meet. And unless you are one of the most well-known names, you're a Sarah Nurse or a Hillary Knight, chances are you do have to hold down an outside job. We're going to talk, right here, Canadian Women's Hockey League. It was volunteer. That was like another attempt at professional women's hockey, and pretty much volunteering. You had to buy your own gear. You had to get yourself to and from the games, and there was no actual true support for the players. The new league follows the collapse of one of its predecessors, the Canadian Women's Hockey League in 2019, and a strike by 200 players who refused to join the other league at the time, the US-based National Women's Hockey League. In a joint statement posted via social media, the players called for the creation of a sustainable professional league for women's hockey. They also complained of a lack of health insurance and salaries as low as $2,000. So if you're making $2,000 and you're playing a bunch of games every single week, you're still working full time. Unless you're Sarah Nurse. Unless you're a well-known name. This is a single league aiming to pool the world's top women's ice hockey talent and maximize corporate sponsorship, which they have so much sponsor. They have a lot of sponsorships. They have a really high profile Barbie sponsorship. They had a Molson Canadian sponsorship where they put Molson where like the Molson logo where the women's names were at the top of the jersey, and then the women's last names at the bottom, and they said we're putting our name at the top of the jersey, we're hiding our name so you can see hers. And it was a really cool commercial where it's like they're saying there's so many famous names in women's hockey, and like the big issue is you can't see the names a lot of the times because the hair covers it. So we're putting our name, Molson, at the top and their name at the bottom. But I think they only did that for one game. And I'm thinking that should be like a frequent, regular sponsorship because that's sick. That's sick. I imagine you saying woohoo like Homer Simpson. That's funny. In recent years, two leagues, the CWHL and the NWHL, rebranded as the Premier Hockey Federation or PHF, had competed for top talent. And it seemed like the CWHL, although like it was definitely divided. The PHF seemed to have more like American top talent, and then the other leagues had more Canadian top talent, and I think more of the people who had more name recognition. The fracturing of corporate sponsorship between the two leagues was seen as a key factor in their financial instability. On the other hand, the PWHL has considerable financial clout behind it, as all 6 franchises are owned by the Mark Walter Group. Mark Walter is the billionaire owner of the Los Angeles Dodgers and part owner of the Premier League club Chelsea. Former women's tennis #1 player and equal rights activist Billie Jean King provides extra credibility as one of the league's board members. So that's why their cup was the Walter Cup, because he owns all the teams. I realize my chin is like really close to the bottom. I'm going to sit up straight. These players, not super high incomes. I like the 80, right? If the minimum was like 50,000, I think I'd be more happy with that. Because depending on where you're living as a single person, 35,000 is not going to, like, you're not going to get very far. If you're in Toronto or New York, that's not going to be enough to live sustainably. I would like to see like closer to the 50, but as you can see here, it's a 3% increase throughout the duration of the 8-year collective bargaining agreement. Based on the average salary of $55,000, the PWHL's salary cap, $1.265 million, is lower than what the PHL said it was prepared to offer, $1.5 million, before it closed down last summer. And even that, of course, was a pittance compared to what players in the top men's league, the National Hockey League, earn. Sure, it's fair to compare the top female talent salary versus the top male talent, but I don't think Connor McDavid should be making $13-14 million a year, however much he makes, or freaking Darnell Nurse making like 12. How much does Nurse make? Does anyone know? Darnell Nurse salary? 10.4. Okay. Darnell Nurse should not be making $10.4 million. No, I don't think anyone should be making that much money, so it's fair to compare it, I guess. But I think what I would like to see is just the top female talent being able to make a living playing hockey. So if you're not Sarah Nurse or Hillary Knight, you can play hockey full time, make a living, and support yourselves and your family. Yes, for sure. That's a load of poo, but that was a solid move on Molson's end with the ad about brand placement on the girls' jerseys. Exactly. Isn't that cool? And the 2000 was the Canadian Women's Hockey League. So that was a separate league that folded in 2019. So that is not what they're being paid now, but that's what a lot of women made, if they make anything at all. Okay, so they do not have any names for now. They just have, you can see here, they just have the name of the city, and then the Canadian Tire logo because they're the founding partner. And here, this must be one of their earlier jerseys because they have on the neck, they have a PWHL logo, and then on the shoulder they have PWHL logo, and I was wanting to get one, but in my opinion the quality of the jerseys for the fans is not great. Like, it's not stitched on. It seems like it's just like ironed on, and in my opinion it seems really low quality. So I think they got, was it Bauer? Where was the jersey deal? PWHL jersey deal 2024. Bauer. So the next jerseys are going to be made by Bauer. So when Bauer makes the jerseys and there's an actual like team name and logo, then I definitely think I will get one. Hey, Monica, we're talking about hockey today. Woohoo! Nice to see you. Thank you for joining. Okay, where was I? So, some of the stars to watch. This was at the beginning. This was before the first season started. Taylor Heise was picked number 1 in the draft. And of course, Hillary Knight, she's the captain of Boston and the captain of the American IIHF team. Marie-Philippe Poulin, who was in the Olympics the first time as an 18-year-old, and she scored the game winner, and she's been the captain of the Canadian team for a long time. Sarah Nurse, huge name. And then Daryl Watts, she was set to earn $150K in the second year of a 2-year contract with the Toronto Six of the PHF, but never collected due to the league shutting down. The 24-year-old Watts won't earn nearly that in her first season with Ottawa. However, the forward seems to have taken the financial loss in stride, saying in a media call that the PWHL would be good for the women's game. So she was promised $150,000, but just never got the money because the league folded. So yeah, and I used to know like the breakdown of how many people could earn a certain amount of money. I think it was like at least 3 people could earn $80,000. So there's not a lot of people on each team who are earning the $80,000. So I doubt that. I highly doubt that she was one of those people in Ottawa. I know she wasn't for sure. Anyway, I went one time with a friend to watch a hockey game. Oh, was it cool? I'm glad you liked it. Right? I'm not a beer drinker, but I can respect a brand for something like that. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. I loved it. Hey, Coconuts, we're talking about hockey today. Nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay. We're not going to read every single article because some of it's repeated, but I think the rule changes are interesting and it makes the PWHL unique, so I want to talk about it. And I think I want to see if I can find the commercial for Molson PWHL, and then we can watch it because it's cool. Yes, okay. Let's watch it now. How about that? Let me get it up, and then we'll watch it. Oh, no, I have to sign in to confirm my age? No, I don't. Oh, I do. Because it's a beer commercial. That's rude. That's rude. Because I'm not signing in on my husband's computer. I'll put the link in the chat. So if anyone who wants to watch the Molson PWHL commercial, you can feel free to do so. There it is. You can click on that. Let me close this. Okay. Okay, where does this rule start? But the Women's League adopted a unique rule interpretation after experimenting with it during December's preseason evaluation camp in Utica, BC. If a team serving a minor penalty scores shorthanded, the penalty terminates. If I get a penalty for tripping and I'm sitting in the penalty box, before my 2-minute penalty is up, if my teammates who are killing off the penalty score a goal, even if it's only 10 seconds into my penalty's done, which is super interesting and not what the NHL does at all. Also unique in shootouts is a player is eligible at any time to take any number of shots and as often as the team chooses. Again, that's not what the NHL does. I wish I knew. I in my research, I remember seeing NHL, you have to cycle through the entire team before someone can repeat. So that's interesting. PWHL also adopted a 3-2-1 point system that differs from the NHL, with 3 points for regulation win, 2 points for an overtime or shootout win, and 1 point for an overtime or shootout loss, and 0 for a regulation loss. I personally think the point for an overtime loss is bullshit. You should not be getting a point for losing a game. I think in the NHL, overtime loss should be 0 points. Because then if you're tied and you have 1 minute left in the game, you're not necessarily playing to win. You're playing to not lose, to get into overtime so you at least get a point. And I think that's dumb and it shouldn't happen. Okay. After the preseason evaluation camp, we surveyed general managers, coaches, players, officials, and received broad consensus that this new rule added excitement to the game and to special team situations. I think fans are really going to enjoy the PWHL for its speed and skill, in addition to its physicality and competitiveness. Another thing is the PWHL is full contact, which is a new thing for North American high level women's hockey. So Ella Shelton of New York, she's a really strong Canadian defender. She scored the first ever PWHL goal in January, so it's very cool. Monica prefers hard seltzer. Neil, 1911 hard cider. Oh, cool. No one likes Molson. Oh, we didn't look at this part. If the score is tied, you get 5 minutes of 3-on-3 overtime. If tied after OT, the shootout will consist first of 5 shots per team instead of the NHL's 3. After 5 shots, the shootout will then proceed to a sudden death format. A player eligible to shoot multiple times. Okay, we already saw that. Yes, okay, it was in this exact article. No player may shoot twice until all eligible players in the game lineup have taken a turn in the NHL. And they can have multiple chances. Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's what I wanted to get at. I wanted to talk about the different rules. Mr. Rangelab says Molson is fine. Okay. So I want to watch the journey of how we got to the PWHL. Obviously, it's really short, and it's like a short, condensed version, but I think it's interesting. So let's watch it. Is it quiet? Oh, I turned it really quiet. That's why. Okay, let's try again. It might be too loud, though.
Haley Grzaniak, she fires it and it's in! The Calgary Inferno are your Clarkson Cup champions.
March 2019, the Calgary Inferno defeat Le Canadien in the Clarkson Cup. They are the champions of the Canadian Women's Hockey League, the last ever champions. A week later, the CWHL folded. No more sounds of skates slicing through ice. No more sounds of tape-to-tape passes. No more cheers after a goal. The best players in women's hockey, Olympic and world champions, were in limbo.
And that's a big issue, right? Because for men, there are 6 million different levels of semi-pro. Not 6 million, I think there's 5 levels of pro hockey in Canada and the US. And like you're not going to make a huge amount of money, right, in the lower levels, but at least when you're done at NCAA or whatever, you have somewhere higher level to play. But if you don't have an actual sustainable league for women to play in and just focus on their hockey, once you're done in NCAA and say you're not lucky enough to be a national team member or on the Olympics or whatever, you're done if there's not a league to play in, right? Because yeah, sure, you can play in high level rec hockey somewhere, right? But it's not going to be best on best. It's going to be whoever shows up at that point, and you don't actually have somewhere to develop your game. So that's why this is such a big deal that women, even the 35K, it's better than 5K, right? Women are able to, like, after university, if they're not national team players, they can try to play at the highest level of hockey that they can play at and continue to develop instead of their career just being over after they graduate university.
The CWHL was never a true professional league. Formed in 2007, it was a not-for-profit entity. Players paid for their own gear.
And just look at how small this rink is. And is there even anyone over here? Let's see.
Many league employees were...
Okay, so it's such a tiny rink. There's barely anybody there. And it's just like these are players who are the best in the world at what they do. They are Olympic medalists, world champions, and they're playing in a miniature league with barely anybody in the crowd. And just like no attention is on the game unless it's an Olympic year, unless it's the world championship time. And it's just like not fair because men have tons of opportunities to play at a high level of hockey. Then like it seems like there's been a huge gap between like men's opportunities in hockey and women's, obviously. Hey Tanya, we're talking about hockey today. Ooh, nice to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Actually volunteers. Factor in the competition from the National Women's Hockey League in the United States, women's hockey was divided. The NWHL, formed in 2015, had its problems too. Paying players between $10,000 and $26,000 wasn't a salary to live on, and financial woes were immediate. Later,
10 to 20,000 is not a salary to live on. You may be able to work part-time somewhere else. If you're making like 30K somewhere else, you could live off of 10,000 with hockey, but your time to play hockey, like your time to work, will be severely limited when you're traveling around constantly and practicing and like it's going to be hard to maintain a job. It's going to be really hard to maintain a job if you're playing at a high level of women's hockey. So yeah, even when they were paid, they weren't paid enough. Oh, for sure, we're going to get there. Super cool, right? Any women's sports are underfunded, underadvertised, and underestimated. Yes, makes me upset.
rebranded the Premier Hockey Federation, there was still little trust around the financial stability. There was a lack of transparency. Who exactly were the investors? Calls for a unified professional women's league intensified. Calls for the NHL to help kept eliciting the same response. Create one league. The women needed to unite. So the best in the
So the NHL, according to this, I don't know anything about it, was potentially interested in helping, but they wanted one league. So all of the investments weren't separated over multiple women's leagues. I read a poll this week that half of sports fans will not buy tickets to any professional women's sports. Everyone has their own opinions on sports, I guess. And I know some people really like hockey, but they only want to watch NHL. So like to each their own. It's a different game, right? Like different speed, different attention is on it, and that's fine. It's just I think there should be a league. There should be a league, and it's fine if you don't like women's hockey, like just like human you, right? It's fine if NHL fans don't like women's hockey, but like just be nice for people to just like give it a shot. Just watch it and then make an informed decision. Cheerleading is just becoming recognized by the Olympics. They have an exhibition this summer games and will be able to actually compete in Paris. I love cheerleading. I'm not a cheerleader, but I love seeing them flip in the air. It's super cool. Hockey and baseball are seriously under-advertised and underestimated and under-advertised, and these women are often better than their male counterparts. Gotcha. So I couldn't read that. And you're right, I agree. Exactly. I just watched the Molson ad we were talking about that hit me in the field, right? Isn't it sweet? It's such a nice ad.
The world became more determined than ever. Immediately they formed a union. They stuck together.
And something else, little boys in sports and hockey, in sports in general, they can look anywhere they want and then they'll see someone who maybe looks just like them playing their sport at the highest level. And then little girls in hockey, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to look up to this woman who plays in NCAA. She's so good. But they don't get to look at a really like high level sustainable league for women to make a living in that actually has attention year round, not just in an Olympic year and not just during the World Championships.
They played exhibition games that grew in popularity and caught the attention of young fans across North America. The passion for women's pro hockey grew stronger. An advocate in Billie Jean King, an investor in the Mark Walter Group, a signed collective bargaining agreement. Their fight had a light at the end of the tunnel. November 2022, the PHF received a call. Would they be willing to sell in order to form one league? It was time to unite. After 7 months of negotiations, the announcement: the PHF would be no more. Their players'
And that sucks. The PHF, they paid their players not much, but they made money. And it went from, I don't remember how many teams were in the PHF, but it was a great reduction because there's only 6 teams in the PWHL. And a lot of the players who made some money in the PHF did not make it to the PWHL because there's not enough space for them, you know? So a lot of women were left in limbo, just like this headline says. It's taken this long for the WNBA to get some kind of traction. It's about damn time. Exactly.
Contracts canceled. There was panic. But this new league promises to be better. This new league promises to stay.
We didn't do this for the short term. We did it for it to be permanent.
With a CBA and average salaries of $55,000, this new league promises to be professional. It's the PWHL, and it's time to drop the puck.
Oh, yeah. It's time to drop the puck. That was a cool commercial. That was cool. Okay, drink break. We're getting through this quickly. This may be a short stream. Walter Cup Championship caps record-breaking first PWHL season in years of work by players. We're not going to read this whole thing because a lot of it's repeated from the rules that we read before. This is Kendall Coyne Schofield. She is hoisting the Walter Cup during the finals. I may have cried. I'm like, why am I crying? I may have cried during the draft as well, but it's nice. She's the captain of the American team, the American national team. You may have recognized her if you watch the NHL skills competitions. Was it 2019? When was it? Was it 2019 that she was in the skills competition because someone dropped out of the speed competition? Coyne NHL speed competition. When was that? Coyne Schofield. Okay, it's not saying. I think it was 2019. So she's a huge name. She finished 7 out of 8 players in the skills competition, and she's 5'2". So she's tiny but so fast, and she was less than 1 second slower than Connor McDavid, who always wins that competition. So she is a brilliant player. So that's her. Hey, girl. Yeah, it was super cool. It was a cool commercial, right? Or not really commercial, video. Okay, I want to read about this. I'm excited. Joy flooded Minnesota captain Kendall Coyne Schofield's face as she lifted the 35-pound Walter Cup above her head on Thursday night after her team defeated Boston 3-0 to win the Professional Women's Hockey League's first championship. It was a cool-ass game, too. It was the culmination of not just a season of hockey, but years of work to create a sustainable league where women would be treated as professionals. It was Coyne Schofield who led a group of players in negotiating a landmark collective bargaining agreement with the PWHL owners last summer, securing benefits like maternity leave and a housing stipend. She was one of the leaders who rallied together 5 years ago to push for more. With the help of sporting icons Billie Jean King and Lana Kloss, they found investors in Mark and Kimbra Walter, who own the 6-team league. The only reason this league happened from a player sense is Kendall, Minnesota's Kelly Panic said, after watching her captain be the first to hoist the trophy. I'm not sure if the trophy's going to have the names of the players on it. If they're going to just like maybe, you can't see my mouse, but the bottom of the trophy, if they're going to keep adding rings to it like they do for the Stanley Cup. But it was made by Tiffany's, and it came in a huge blue Tiffany's box. Let's see if I can find it. Walter Cup Tiffany's box. Let's see if I can find it. Sorry. I want to show this. It was sick. It was cool. 1 second, friends. 1 second. Share this tab. So this is the trophy. A moment of appreciation for the box. The box. So it's not a very good, I'm zoomed way in. So look at the box. Ooh, that's cool. Look at the Tiffany & Co. box. Are they showing me how to open it? That's weird. But yeah, look at the trophy. So pretty. It's not very big, but it still weighs 35 pounds. I'm pretty sure it weighs the same as the Stanley Cup. Let me just verify that Stanley Cup weight. How much do you weigh, Sir Stanley Cup? Yeah, it weighs the same. Stanley Cup is 34 pounds. The Walter Cup is 35. 35, 45, whatever. Yeah, 34 pounds. Walter Cup is 35. So it's pretty much the exact same weight. Yeah. I do think I like Boston a little more because there's more Canadian names that I like, but I think Minnesota is the better team. Oh yeah, okay. All of the women have worked hard, for sure. But yeah, it's nice that Kendall Coyne Schofield won. That's way prettier than the Stanley Cup, for sure. Yes, the white gloves. Did they have white gloves? Oh yeah, weird. Okay, where was I? I was here. Okay, a historic first goal. We're going to talk about the first goal ever. It all started on New Year's Day when New York defender Ella Shelton fired a puck past Toronto goaltender Kristen Campbell to score the first goal in PWHL history. Kristen Campbell is the third-string goalie for the Canadian national team. This was the league's first game played in front of the first of 11 sellout crowds of more than 2,400 at Mattamy Athletic Centre in downtown Toronto. Toronto can definitely have a much bigger home arena next season for sure. But bigger crowds kept showing up. More than 8,300 people filled TD Place in Ottawa a day later, setting a North American record for the largest crowd to watch a professional women's hockey league game. The record didn't last long. More than 13,000 people showed up for Minnesota's home opener on January 6th at the Xcel Energy Center. The 13,000 really convinced us we were going to make it work. But even then, I couldn't have imagined how the year would play out, how we would set attendance records and sponsorship records and viewing records. So all around, and when you watch interviews from league executives, they're all very surprised at the level of success they had in the first season, which is amazing. Seeing demand for tickets, the league moved a game to Toronto's Scotiabank Arena in February, dubbing the match against Montreal as the Battle on Bay Street. That's an NHL arena. The game was sold out too, with the 19,285 fans in attendance setting a world record, one that would be smashed on April 20th when 21,105 people watched the Toronto-Montreal rematch inside the Bell Centre. Amazing, brilliant. The demand seemed to catch the PWHL by surprise, even though teams didn't have logos or names yet. Merchandise frequently sold out in arenas and online. Yes, there's very limited merchandise. The jerseys were just sold out, and for a long time they weren't able to replenish the stock. Look how sick this is. Look how sick this is. So I know that Canada US national teams can sell out. They do sell out rinks this size because those are truly like the biggest, most recognized names in the league, in the sport, sorry. But the fact that this is not just Canada US playing against each other, there are names, people who played in NCAA, maybe played in the other semi-professional leagues before this one. And if you're not an Olympic or national team member, you are not used to playing in front of over 21,000 people. And it's probably a lot even for the most well-seasoned Olympians, right? So can you imagine you have never played in front of more than maybe 5,000 people at your university rink, and then 21,000 people bought tickets to watch you? That's just outrageous and so cool. Look at all these people. Look at all those freaking people. So cool. And it's funny, they struggled to draw fans to the New York games, but they were like, yeah, they rotated between arenas in 3 states, with some nights in Massachusetts. I can't say that word, Massachusetts. So what do we expect if the New York games aren't even like in the state? I think that should be the starting point. Have New York games in New York, right? Okay. On the final day of the regular season, PWHL Minnesota players didn't know whether they'd be practicing the next day or packing for the off-season. The team ended the season on a 5-day slide and squeaked into the playoffs by virtue of an Ottawa loss. While Minnesota went into the playoffs as the lowest-ranked team, the gap between the PWHL teams has been razor-thin all season. That continued in the playoffs, where players struggled to solve stellar goaltending. Something interesting, the first place-seeded team in PWHL regular season, Toronto, was able to pick who they played in the first round, and they picked Minnesota, who was the number 4 seeded team. Only 4 teams made it to the playoffs, and then they did a reverse sweep. So they only played best of 5, not best of 7. Toronto was 2-0, and they just needed one more win, right? And then Minnesota came back and made it 2-1, 2-2, and then Minnesota won a third game unanswered by a win, and they actually eliminated Toronto from the playoffs, which was super cool and super exciting. It's one of the biggest surprises of the inaugural season for Minnesota head coach Ken Klee, who said he didn't realize how competitive every game would be. Every night feels like a Canada-US game, Klee said. Jana Hefford, the PWHL Senior Vice President of Hockey Operations, said parity was a goal that guided how the league distributed players across the 6 teams. I don't think we could have wrote the script any better. The way it played out and came down to the last game of the regular season to decide who was in the playoffs, Hefford said last week. I wish hockey was more popular down here. I miss the smaller league play because it was more fun to be in the crowd, for sure. New York games kind of suck because the fans there can be super aggressive. My elbow hurts. My brother wore a Leafs jersey to a Rangers game once. He said he barely made it out in one place. Oh my gosh. That sucks. So this is just a big description about the rule changes that we already talked about. Yeah. And the hits, as we know, I already told you, full contact, and a lot of these women are like in their 30s, have never done contact before, and they had to learn how to hit for the first time in their career. So it's definitely an adjustment. Cool. That's all I wanted to read on that part. And I'm excited to talk about next season Sorry, my nose is running. The same shit happens in baseball too. Red Sox, Yankees, need I say more? The PWHL first season is over. Ooh, Edmonton, Dallas, 2-0, game 6. I'm going to watch that after. Are you guys watching it? What worked and what are the top priorities for year 2? I wanted to do some research on this because I have some questions for sure. Sorry. Okay. Here it is. This is where I wanted. With the draft June 10th and free agency June 21st, only a few short weeks away, it's time to turn our attention to the 2024-25 season. Besides roster building, what can the team learn from its first season to make year 2 even better? Here are the top 5 lessons and priorities for the PWHL heading into next season. No, thank you. No! 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 Let's stop this. I was so excited to read this because it's like how we deal with next season, right? Can I exit out of it? No! I can't even just read it on my own. Maybe can I get it up on a different browser? I'll try to get it up on a different browser. I'm sad. Because I'd like to be able to just like get it up on my own. Because I'm streaming in Google Chrome at the moment. So I don't know if I can stream in Chrome and then share something that's in Firefox. But we shall see. Yeah, I'm trying a different browser. It's not working. I could get it up on my phone because I want to see the priorities. All right, then. All right, I guess we can't do that. That's really rude. I'm going to try. I really want to read this, so I'm going to see if I can do it on my phone. And then if that doesn't work, we'll move on. Okay? So thank you for bearing with me. I'm just going to PWHL first. Because I really want to read this. Because I think it like ties up the video nicely. Of course, I can't type is over. What worked and what are priorities? Let's see if I can do this on my phone. Might not work, but we're going to do this because I want to talk about it. Okay, so I just have my phone up here. Get the branding right. Let's get this out of the way quickly. Team logo names and logos are coming. On the TSN broadcast of Game 5 on Wednesday night, the league's Senior Vice President of Business Operation said that names and logos will be announced in August. The league has already announced that redesigned jerseys are coming for 2024-25 as part of an expanded partnership with Bauer Hockey. I'm excited for that. I will get I will get a Toronto jersey, most likely. Maybe a Montreal one. We'll see. The equipment company will be the PWHL's first official jersey partner, responsible for the official game and replica jerseys. Fans can expect an elevated design and more to be passionate about, and more in terms of what will be included on the jersey. Mary Kay Messier, the vice president of global marketing for Bauer Hockey, told The Atlantic. The league had previously trademarked some ideas: Toronto Torch, Ottawa Alert, Montreal Echo, Boston Wicked, New York Sound, and Minnesota Superior, but it would be shocking if those were the names they used. Why delay the process if you're just going to use the names people didn't like 7 months ago? Yeah, the names did not get good feedback. A lot of people were confused by it. Besides getting the names and logos right, the league needs to be better about merchandise, from the design options, availability, size ranges, etc. The appetite for PWHL merchandise, whether it's jerseys, t-shirts, sweaters, or other gear, is massive, which is a good problem to have. But the league didn't quite hit the mark this year. Yep. And they know that. As Caston said, merchandise is the most obvious area of improvement for year two. There's a lot of really like $120 sweatshirts, $70 like long sleeve tees. And recently they started to have some more reasonably priced like t-shirts, like $35, $40 t-shirts. So they're definitely starting to improve on that. Yeah, I needed a subscription. So annoying. I hate it when news outlets do that. Same. Now I'm like squinting to try to read it off my phone. Yeah, the names aren't very good. Anastasia, Toronto, Torch. No, thank you. But can I think of a better one? Maybe not. I'm not creative. The one good thing is we sold out everything we could make. I mean, it was flying off the shelves when we could get it to arenas, but we have more coming and more designs and greater inventory. It's going to be a lot better. That's great. I love that. Okay, so more on the rules. The draft gold plan and allowing the number one team to pick its playoff opponent made for meaningful hockey down to the final game of the regular season. Kloss and King said they loved these new rules. So I forget what the draft gold plan is. I forget what that is. What is the draft gold plan? Do you guys know what that is? Okay, the draft gold plan, instead of a lottery system that encourages losing by awarding the best odds to the league's worst teams, a league would determine the draft order based on the number of points each team earned after being eliminated from the playoffs. The idea was first introduced at the MIT Sloan Sports Analysis Conference in 2012 by Adam Gold, a PhD candidate at the University of Missouri. That's fine, but it's kind of a weird rule because Toronto or Ottawa and because there were three teams, Ottawa, Boston, Minnesota were all like barely about to make it. They all relied on other teams losing, and New York was quite bad this year, so they were eliminated way early. So obviously all the other two teams, what am I trying to say? Ottawa was eliminated at the very end of the season, so they probably had like 1 point after elimination, and New York had a bunch of points because they were bad and got eliminated really early. So I get the idea of it, but I think in practice it's not really the greatest idea. What do you think? Okay, where were we? This has been the goal with the PWHL tweaks due to something that doesn't change the game of hockey. Of course, we're going to debrief postseason, but right now this response has been overwhelmingly positive. Okay. Every single game was available for free on YouTube, in addition to regional and national TV rights deals in place. Women's hockey games have either not been widely available or been broadcast on what looked like a doorbell camera. Visibility has long been the biggest issue facing women's hockey, and the PWHL got it right by making every game easily accessible this season, despite the fact that it came at a massive cost. Okay, they say the arena matters. Obviously it does. Sorry, my nose is running so bad right now. Finding the right facilities for games and training was a major part of the building process. The league had certain standards of professionalism it needed to meet, but also needed availability from potential venues. In the end, some teams had it better than others. Minnesota played games at the Xcel Energy Center and trained at whatever this rink is, two facilities shared with the NHL's Minnesota Wild. Ottawa played and trained at TD Place Arena and had the league's best average attendance figures. Montreal split between Verdun Auditorium and the 10,000-seat Place Bell, where they played the postseason. I'm not reading every single word, but we're just getting the main gist. Toronto's arena situation has been a hot topic since the first game of the season, with tickets being so hard to get. The team played at the Mattamy Athletic Center, formerly Maple Leafs Gardens, which is a nice facility and has a great atmosphere. But with a 2,600 cap on fans, it's not ideal. The league has been happy with Mattamy as a home base, but inevitably the league is going to need to look at the next step. Yeah, with the roster that Toronto has, there is going to be like way more demand than only 2,600 fans at those games. I feel like Toronto could be in a 10,000 seat arena and they might not sell out every single game, but they would have a good turnout. Okay, and then Boston had a weird situation too. And then, yeah, New York played at 3 different arenas. Okay, this is what I wanted to read. Sorry. It's so hard for me to see this. This shit's small. It's hard for me to read. Okay, I will look at where Boston played. Let me find it. Okay. Okay. Let me increase the brightness. Then there's Boston, which plays 30 miles outside the city in Lowell, Massachusetts. The arena itself, at least during the playoffs, was a lot of fun. Game 5 was sold out and loud, but the team also averaged the second fewest fans per game this season. The question is whether there's a better option in the city or if the team would move to another spot outside Boston. Agganis Arena, home of the Boston University men's hockey team, could make sense with a 6,300 seat capacity, 6 visiting locker rooms, and other amenities. But the BU women's team doesn't even get to play there, so optics-wise, would that be an issue? Boston also trains at the Boston Sports Institute, which is a nice facility, but it's nearly 30 miles from Lowell and 17 from Boston. That makes it tricky for players who choose where to live and guarantees a drive. Boston traffic is notoriously awful. Okay. There's one more thing I want to read and then we're done. It's interesting parts about the next draft. Lowell is gross. They'd be better off playing in Worcester or something other than nasty Lowell. That's funny. I'm sorry for sniffing into the microphone. I know that's annoying. Okay. What to do in lieu of expansion? League leaders have made it clear that expansion is not coming for next season because they want to get the original franchises and infrastructure right. Without expansion or a development league, the ecosystem for pro hockey, women's hockey in North America is very small. Expecting a league that's not even 1 year old to have a development league when it took the NBA decades to create its own domestic development league is not realistic. But it's also going to be hard to see players forced to retire due to a lack of roster spots in the lone North American League. In the NHL, if someone gets drafted, they aren't necessarily going to play in the NHL right away. Chances are, unless you're Connor Bedard, you're not going to. So that's why the guys will play in the AHL often or in like top tier juniors because, yeah, there's not enough roster spots on every NHL team to have every guy who's drafted to be on the team right away. So they'll play in the AHL, they'll play in juniors, develop more, improve, and then they'll earn a spot on the roster. Is it as simple as making the reserve player list bigger? Could the PWHL strike some kind of agreement with European leagues like the SDHL? I Googled that. That's a Swedish women's league in the future. Trying to figure out what the right solution for that in the short term is at the top of our list of things to do. We are thinking creatively about places that players can play if they don't end up on our 23 or 26 player roster next year. There are many people that want to figure out a solution to this so we can keep more women playing the game at the highest level. When it comes to the fan experience in lieu of expansion, it's more straightforward, more neutral site games. Games in Detroit and Pittsburgh were a success for the league and got women's pro hockey in front of thousands of fans who wouldn't otherwise have been able to see Toronto or Boston play this season. The league will play at least 30 games next season versus 24 regular season games this year, and Caston has already said we can expect more neutral site games at NHL venues in 2024-25. It would be nice to see the league head to cities outside its current geographical cluster, save for Minnesota, with games in the Midwest, Chicago, the Pacific Northwest, Seattle or Vancouver, or California. Vancouver would be interesting. And then that's all. Because my husband and I were talking, and they were like, with no development league, I think the draft class is like 40. How many people are 42 players? Yeah, the next draft class is 42 players. And so majority of the players signed one-year contracts, so the teams aren't going to look exactly the same. But there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be drafted, but they're not going to make a team. They're not going to make the roster. So what do? Where do they play? My Toronto team name would be the Toronto Blue and White. Cool. Yeah, the Toronto Torch is kind of silly. So that's all I have. We got through a lot. So we learned about what the league actually is. We've learned about the challenges of establishing a true sustainable professional league, women's hockey league in North America. We learned about the Walter Cup, who won it. We learned about the rule changes that make the PWHL more unique and interesting. We learned about areas of improvement for the next season, like merchandise, like a consistent home arena. We learned about how they're going to try to address the size of the upcoming draft class and where players can play if they don't make a roster and still develop so they can try to crack the roster the next year. We learned a lot. We looked at the trophy. We thought it was cool and pretty. And yeah, we talked about how brilliant Kendall Coyne Schofield is and how hard she works. And she's fantastic. She's so talented. And she looked so happy. So it was really cool to see. And I definitely cried. But that's why I didn't stream on Wednesday, because I wanted to watch it. But yeah, that was really fun. I'm so glad I got to do a hockey stream. Yay! Mr. Angel Lab's enjoying the stream. Thank you. Yay! I'm glad you liked it, Tanya. That's awesome and super nice. Yes, we learned how shitty Lowell is, right? So thank you, friends. I am happy I had people watching me this entire time. I honestly thought I'd have like one person, if that, in the chat watching a hockey stream. But I'm really happy. So many people were here. Yay! Anastasia thought it was fun. Thank you. And we'll be doing another stream on Wednesday if I'm up to it after work, of course. And it'll be more of my normal topics. Although I don't really have normal topics now. But like an online scammy-esque thing is what we're going to do. So thank you so much for chatting and hanging out with me. And I hope you guys enjoyed it, because you love it and we want to support. Yay! Love that. Thank you. And I will see you guys all on Wednesday. Bye.